Hi, this is Steven with another Maya 2016 basics video. I want to continue learning about objects. We have looked at polygon primitives so far, but to really release the power of Maya, we need to learn how to model on a component level. But before we do that, there's some things I have not touched on. So before we jump into component modeling, I wanted to show you things like parenting and grouping, a little more about selection, and let's get started. So I'm going to create a few objects here. Okay, so I have four objects in the scene, and you're familiar with the move, scale, rotate. I don't know if I've mentioned Q is the shortcut for the first select tool. So if I hit Q, it jumps up there, or I can click. So selecting is just left click, and I can select. To select multiple, I can hold down Shift. And if I decided I don't want one, I can hold down Shift and click again, and it will toggle off one. So Shift serves as a multiple select hotkey and to deselect something you have. Now the last one you select is going to be a different color. So if I were to perform an action on this, it's going to perform that tool or action on everything, but the manipulator is only going to show up on the last one. For example, if I wanted to rotate, I'm going to hit E. So if I rotate this, everything's not going to rotate around this object. That's just the last one selected, so they're all going to rotate. If I hit R, they're all going to scale. So you can, I think I duplicated too many a while ago. Okay. Also with the select tool, I can drag select to select multiple instead of doing the shift. Once something's selected, I want to deselect, I can just click off the object in the scene. So that's selected. Something else about selection, there is so suppose I have these two, I'm going to shift deselect. If I make another marquee over objects I've already selected, it's going to add to that selection. However, if I wanted to toggle, sometimes I know if I'm selecting certain things, it's easier to select first what I don't want selected and then do kind of a toggle or an inverse selection. Let me show you what I mean. So suppose I want these three selected, it might be easier to select this one, and then I can hold down Shift, and then when I release the box, it undoes this one and adds these here. So I'll show you that again. Hold down Shift, and it's just an inverse select. So if I do it again, it's going to deselect these three. I'm holding down Shift. So that's a few things about selection tools that I forgot to touch on. So selecting things is pretty important. Well, I'm going to move on to parenting now. Parenting is really simple to do it, but sometimes it can be difficult to understand exactly what's going on. But to see this better, I'm going to open up the outliner. The outliner is a window in Maya that allows you to see all of the objects in the scene. It allows you to rename. I can click here and name this one Bob. I can name this one Earl. Name this one Jake. Whatever. You can name your objects, and you can select them from here as well. So if you get a very busy scene, it's hard to get in there and select a specific object, you can go to the outliner and select them. Alright, so the way a parent works. Alright, each object has its translate node. It's transform node where it has your translates and your rotates and scale. So this can scale, this can rotate, this can move. Okay. A parent Parenting is when there is a child-parent relationship between one object and another. I think of it as a ship. So let's just pretend this is a big boat. Okay, I'll change from Bob to boat. Okay, to parent something is simply click what you want to be the child object and shift select the parent. The last one selected will be green, and just hit the P button. And notice what happens to the outliner. If I hit P, this one disappeared. Well, actually, you break it down, and this one is parented to the boat. So if that means anywhere that boat goes, that child goes. So this position is determined by the parent. However, that child still has freedom there to move and to go. All right. So for example, if a ship's moving, and you're on the ship, you're free to walk around the deck as you please, even though that ship's going. So the thing with parenting you have to be careful with, like for example here I have these scale attributes. Those are being transferred to the child here. So when I start to rotate, some weird things can happen. See, that's not a proper rotate. And that's called double transformations. It's taking the attributes here and kind of multiplying them somehow here. So if you don't want to get that, I think sometimes you have to bring these back to 1. And you can do that. Well, if I take it back to 1, then it's going to make this a cube again. And see how that scale affected this here. So if you're going to do any parenting, it's best not to use your scale attributes to size your object, because it's transferring that. Anytime I change the scale, it's going to transfer that, and it's going to influence this. So a better way to have done that is, I'm just going to delete these, create a new one, and go ahead and handle the size by the inputs here. So the width is 5 and the height is 0.5. The depth is 2. So now when I put this object on here and parent it, I'm going to select the child and the parent, hit P, and now I move this. And now if I go to rotate this, I don't get that stretchiness, that distortion. And that had to do with the fact that my scale here was off, and that was causing issues. I don't know if that made sense, but the most important thing is wherever a parent goes, however a parent rotates, that child is bound to it. However, that child is independent. It can be scaled and rotated at however it wants, but anytime that parent goes somewhere, it's going to take that child with it. Now, when would you use this? Well, I'll show you. Let's make a width of something about, let's see, height 0.3, depth 0.3, and I'll hit F to frame. And I'm going to move this pivot point over to the edge with the home key. And then I'm going to hold down V for vertice, and then that's going to snap to this end here. Hold down W to move. That gets me out of the pivot point mode. Then I'm hold down X to snap to the grid here. Okay. I'm going to take this one, and this is going to be kind of the body here. So I can take this and it's going to be like an arm of sorts. So I'm going to take this guy and shift click. I'm going to parent the arm to the body, P, And you notice this is Jake, and this is Jake's arm. 1. Okay. Then I can take this, I'm going to Command D, I'm going to duplicate it, and notice when I duplicate it, it stayed under that hierarchy of Jake. And then I'm going to rotate this one up, and I'm going to name this one, well, it's already Jake arms too, but I'm going to, I could take this and Shift P, or take this and select the arm and hit P again, and then it puts this arm parented to this part of the arm parented to the body. So this I can scale, and it's not going to have any of the adverse effects that I was talking about earlier where it distorts. So I can move this, but if I move this part of the arm, the whole arm moves, but I still have control here. Okay. Now I'm parented to the body. What if I decide, hey, I go somewhere? I'm going to be translated in some dimension. It carries everything with it. So that's kind of the idea of parenting. In the project we do next week as a class, we're going to use this. So I hope that makes sense. Also with parenting, you can do it directly in the outliner. I can take one of these and I can middle mouse click, and I'm going to take this out of the parent relationship. I'm going to drag it out, and now if this goes somewhere, I'm going to W to move. It's not going with it. I can take Jake's arm, take it out. I'm middle mouse clicking. So you can also form those relationships. I click, middle mouse drag, click, middle mouse drag. So the outliner can be a useful place. To unparent, I can also do a Shift P. You select the child and do Shift P, and notice how that took Jake's arm out of the parent relationship with Jake. So a couple things to remember with the outliner. I'm going to continue on in the next video, but this is probably a good place to stop here. But we've talked a little bit about selection and a little bit about parenting. And the next one, we want to wrap up some of these things we're doing with objects in object mode so we can move on to components. In the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about grouping and maybe talk a little bit about some of this status line that we haven't talked about yet. Okay, see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.